You are now watching the Amazin Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazin Mets pregame show with my boy CP and myself. Hopefully, everybody's having a good Sunday. Unfortunately, we're talking about a loss in this pregame, but the New York Mets have an opportunity to take 3 out of 4 against a team that is in front of them in the standings of the wild card. I know nobody wants to talk about that, but we are going to get started talking about the pregame as we got about a half hour for you guys, about an hour and a half before the game. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Rangers lost last night, stung really badly. Their season is done. Post-game stream. It was a very heartfelt post-game stream up on my channel. Make sure you all check that out. Shout out to Aaron Blue Shirts Banner in the chat as well, tuning in for this stream. But yeah, tough loss for the Mets yesterday. Obviously, that was kind of the tone wasn't set early, right? With that grand slam off of Christian Walker's bat. So it was kind of tough to recuperate from that. But like people are saying in the chat here, a couple of bats are getting going, right? Francisco Lindor is having a pretty good month, or was having a pretty good month in May, kind of continuing that. And then also Mark Vientos has been absolutely hitting the piss out of the ball, which is awesome to see. So a couple of positives, but like I said, this is a must-win game. This was a must-win series. We talked about it before the series kicked off. We were talking about 3 of 4 at minimum. The sweep obviously isn't in the cards, but I think if you can stack wins from here and you can stack series wins, it has to start today. So this is a must-win game, in my opinion, at this point in the season.
Absolutely, and I was just typing in, responding to JoJo, reigning NL champs, 26-32, and yeah, and I was gonna type it in, but I'm gonna say it. That's why anything is possible. That's why all you got to do is get into the playoffs, regardless of your record. And it's just that simple. Like, look, it was a bad loss, and before I get into the Mets, at least Panarin finally scored. Yeah, Jesus, Breadman, yeah, poor guy. But oh man, sorry, I just had to say that because I'm like, oh, we scored with like a minute 30 something left. Beautiful. All right, so sorry about that. I just had to get it off my chest because I have the Sports Center and it's showing the freaking highlights. So once again, guys, the Mets need a series really, really badly. Not for their own mental wellness, but for the New York Mets fans' wellness, because right away, the first 2 games of the series, people kind of started to jump on the bandwagon again, considering that, Lindor has had a really good month. Pete Alonso's starting to break out of it a little bit more. I think Nimmo is putting together better at bats. I hope he does because, batting him third is a really important situation now for him because we need him to score those runs. And you're not moving Lindor, who's playing well. You're not really moving Alonso, who's getting there. So Nimmo's got to figure it out. And I'm one that goes against you and Hector about him being in the third spot because I don't believe he's a run producer to that tier that I think people want him to be. And that's what you need as your 3-hitter. And I hope he does, because if he gets going with Lindor and Alonso, this team's going to look a hell of a lot different, and it's going to be harder to beat this team. But yesterday, and Manaea, that was the weirdest stat line I ever seen. He pitched 10 strikeouts, but gave up that grand slam. It was all you can rope. And it's crazy because, like, he kind of pitched well, except for that one pitch, and that's the unfortunate thing that yesterday's game turned into. We had the Strawberry retirement, the number retirement.
That was awesome. That was awesome,
great.
Rob.
And by the way, shout out to Strawberry. Like, that hit me to my core. And I was barely a few years old. I wasn't even born yet. I'm not making myself that old. I wasn't even born yet when he played with the Mets when they won in '86. So, saying that, he apologized to Met fans that he left, that he should have never left. Saying that we are the best fans that around, and that wasn't just because he was at Citi Field. He really meant it. You can tell in his face, his eyes, his emotion. So that was great as well. But man, it would have been so nice for the Mets to win yesterday on Strawberry Day. It would have been perfect, a perfect ending. But it's baseball. Anything can happen, regardless of who you celebrate in that day. And unfortunately, Chris, because of that grand slam, that morale that we talked about of the team, it kind of like got washed away in that game. And that happens. I understand that, it's a roller coaster. But man, I wonder if the Mets would have, they did try to come back in the ninth. They scored 4 runs in the ninth. So, they didn't like just, roll over and die. They made I wouldn't say comeback, but they showed some life. And I guess that's important for today's game with the lineup that we had today, a Sunday lineup. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's So you never want to take yesterday into today, right? We always talk about that on these pregame streams, and especially at this point of the season where you're 10 games under 500. And like Back at the Bench podcast is saying in the chat here in the comments section, like 24 and 34, the optics are bad. You're only 4.5 out of the wild card. I know everybody wants to talk about, let's not talk about standings. It's June 2nd, etc. This team is whatever. My problem here is, and I was like, yeah, I agree. All it takes is one run to get back into things, and that starts today. But are we confident as Mets fans in them doing so and making that run? Because whatever we've seen to this point of the season, they had one run that we talked about, that one spurt and stretch that they went, like 12-3, and they rose to like number 10 in the power rankings. They snuck in there, right? Not that those power rankings mean anything, but they snuck in there. It was good to see. And everything just started to fall apart after that. The consistency is something we are still pleading for as Mets fans, the consistency factor. So honestly, like I said, a stinker is going to happen. A game like yesterday is going to happen where you give up a grand slam and it seems like you're out of it early. How do you respond today? Do you settle for the split, or do you take a series that you started off 2-0 in? That's going to tell the makeup of the team, and that's going to tell me the sort of vibes and energy that's going to be moving forward, right? Because we said it, right? This homestand was everything to this team. We're not going to backtrack on that, Rob. We said it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and you know what we talked about. What's sad about this too, and what's not even sad, frustrating, is that the National League that we're chasing right now, a lot of the teams that we're chasing, they could have buried the Mets as bad as they played in this homestand, but they didn't. The Mets actually gained a game since the homestand started. And they haven't played well at all. So again, we're talking about the stand-ins of the wild card because of the fact we know August 2nd isn't going to mean anything if the deadline becomes a sell situation. We got, a little bit over 50 games until the deadline. Well, actually, whenever we're at 49 games, 48 games now until the deadline. So, that's a little over a month of games where, or a month and a half of games where you really got to get it together here. And that's why we're talking about the standards, because again, the third wildcard team is what, a game under 500 or game over 500. Like, again, we keep on talking about it, but it's reality. The Mets win today and you get a couple of teams lose, they can end up the homestand gaining 2 games on the wild card, the third wild card. That's hilarious. And that just shows you that nobody's really playing well in the National League. And all you need is a really good week. If the Mets would have went 7-3, they'd be right there. Maybe a game out of the wild card, maybe 2 games out of a wild card, maybe even tied for a wild card spot. That's how bad these National League teams are. And we continue to talk about it because, well, it's a fact. You go on a good run for a week, everything's going to change, because if the Mets end up a game or so of a wild card spot over the next week or so, there will be Met fans excited about that. Not because they're playing great, not because they're one of the better teams in baseball, but because there's an opportunity and there's a chance. The Diamondbacks, who we're facing, look, somebody already brought up in the chat, right? They're what, 26-32, and they were in the World Series last year. The Texas Rangers, are not playing well either this year, and they won the World Series last year. The Phillies in 2022 weren't a really good team, but they had a month of a run and took it into the playoffs. That's all you really need. Unfortunately, the Mets don't have a September run to worry about until that point comes, but that point might be irrelevant. That's why these last 47, 48 games before the deadline are important, and why we keep on hammering the stand-ins. And we're going to hammer it on the post game. We're going to hammer it on the roundtable later tonight, Chris. And it's important because this team is close enough in the stand-ins where you get Lindor, Alonso, and Nimmo going at the same time. And right now, Alonso and Nimmo I'm sorry, Alonso and Lindor over the month of May had really good stats. I posted it in the group chat. They've had a really good 25 game stretch here, and they got to continue that. If they would have got better pitching, who knows? But somebody else has got to step up here. And I think it's going to be Nimmo because I don't trust Jeff McNeil. But
Yeah.
even JD Martinez is hitting. Like, if we get 1 through 4 hitting, we saw what the Dodgers did. When you're 1 through 4 hits, it doesn't matter what 5 through 9 do. So, what do you think about the situation that I just talked about when you talk about the standings? And what about this lineup, by the way? Because it's a little interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, when we talk about the standings, I'm not gonna say, like Carlos was saying, I'm not gonna say it's meaningless because we want to see this team make the playoffs. Obviously, we know that it was an evaluation type year. We say this all the time, but if you can sneak into the playoffs in an evaluation type year, that just speaks to the strengths of David Stearns being able to put something together competently while not having the full breadth of resources that he's going to have in future years. But nonetheless, I'm not concerned, like I said, about wild card standings watching right now. I'm concerned about the process of Mets baseball. Who's playing well? Are they turning it around? Like you said, Lindor's turning it around before the All-Star break. Pete Alonso's turning it around. Can Brandon Nimmo do the same thing? If the processes are correct with this team, and the bullpen's a different story because I think that they really took a brunt of the workload. And I remember, I forgot exactly who it was, but it was a stream that was like a month ago where the bullpen was just holding it down for this team consistently and it was being overtaxed and overused and they're holding it down. They're like, is this sustainable for the rest of this summer, knowing that, you're just using this bullpen too frequently right now? And you know what? The short-term answer here that we've been seeing was whoever stated that, because like I said, if I remember who stated it, I would give him credit. That was not a concern of mine at the time, but it's a concern of mine now. And that is a different topic. We will talk about that, but do you know what I'm saying? One part of this team starts to get going and then the other one starts to fade and they don't play as the collective unit. And that's my concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got to be a concern because it is troubling right now. But you know what? For the first 45 games of the season, like you said, they were holding them down. And when the offense couldn't pick them up, how about the offense give the bullpen a little bit of a breather and do their job? You know what I'm saying? Like how about scoring 5 or 6 runs and, giving you a cushion so your bullpen doesn't have to stretch it out and strain over and put the pressurized situations on every game? Because it felt like that, the bullpen was so good over the first, month and a half of the season, and then it's been struggling over the last 2 weeks. But it's Diaz not being out of here right now. It's Reed Garrett being our closer. Raley's gone for the season. That's big blows to your bullpen. I don't care what bullpen you are. When you're missing those 2 important guys in your bullpen, there's a pretty good chance you're going to struggle. So it's about time for the offense and the starting pitching. The starting pitcher got to go a little bit deeper. And, I'm not saying go 7 innings, but give us a quality 6 innings, occasionally 7 innings with a couple of runs. And the offense needs to score some more runs here. I think it's about time for the other part of the team to help out the bullpen because the bullpen has been so solid. We knew this was going to change at some point. We were losing ball games for the majority of the season because of the offense. And now the offense is picking it up, but they need to pick it up a little bit more to help this bullpen that is clearly going to struggle without the faces of Diaz and Raley. And then, Drew Smith is out. Ottavino is one of your main guys. Reed Garrett's your closer. It's hard to win ball games like that when you're counting on those guys on an everyday basis in close games that the Mets play every single day.
Yeah, a couple of points here. I agree with Stevie Mack wholeheartedly here. Really need another month to fully judge things because this team is still beyond bipolar when it comes to being the inconsistent team that we all just don't like, right? We talk about consistency and trying to find it, and they just haven't found it just yet. So we will give them another chance to sort of not another chance, but I really do think that there needs some more time to see what we have. But it starts today. Like I said, it starts today in a must-win game because you got to get it going. They left themselves no room for errors. Secondly, as it pertains to the bullpen, Joel is saying the bullpen's been imploding. Amazin saying the offense gave the bullpen a huge cushion on Friday night. And I believe that game ended up only in a 1-run ball game as well, due to some late hitting there by the Diamondbacks or however that played out. Well, this is my problem with the bullpen. Like you said, Edwin Diaz hasn't been performing. Now he's on the 15-day IL, and he's also struggling with his confidence. Brooks Raley's out for the season. Jorge Lopez situation, like, listen, Jorge Lopez was never going to be lights out, but I think that he was serviceable in his time as a Met. That situation is bygones are bygones. He's not here anymore. Adam Ottavino, can we really trust in him? We talk about him last week or so, and it doesn't really seem like we can trust Adam Ottavino fully, right? In that sort of closer role. Blew a save there in a 2-1 ball game, and they ended up losing that game. Reed Garrett has been coming back down to life as well as of recent, and we are sort of just wondering what his plateau and what his peak is. Like, there are legitimate concerns, and now you also take a hit with like the depth in the bullpen in terms of the farm system. Nate Lavender, I believe, also getting Tommy John out for the season. He was definitely going to be a call-up candidate if this bullpen needed help. You don't have him, so you're going to have to sort of manipulate this starting rotation and the excess of starters that you have in a certain way where we might see when Christian Scott comes back. And I know that we'll save the Christian Scott talk for later tonight in the roundtable with Hector and all of us on the panel, because that kind of rubbed my gears the wrong way. And I know that a lot of people were kind of under the assumption that it was like a procedural move. And I get it. I understand it. But the other side of me is like, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But nonetheless, it is what it is. When he comes back up, because we're assuming that it's going to be, shortly after that London series, hopefully, then what do you do with a David Peterson, right? Like, is he going to go to the bullpen and be that lefty in place of Brooks Raley? Like, how are they going to fill in these bullpen spots, knowing the injuries and inconsistencies to this bullpen as well? Drew Smith, I didn't see a transaction for Drew Smith, but I know that he was rehabbing in the minors. Is he back officially on the team? I must have missed
I
it if
haven't
he is.
seen that, but I think it was like 2 days ago where they said he was supposed to come back today, but I haven't seen anything yet. So I'm assuming it's on track because I haven't heard anything different.
Right. So I have to, once we get off here, I have to see what's up with Drew Smith, because I know that he was starting those rehab games and was on his way to being back. But also, just like you said with the lineup, right? I want to address the lineup in terms of the Francisco Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo top three. I more so I was preaching the fact that I think Nimmo could thrive in that 3-hole, and he hasn't performed up to the expectations of that 3-hole just yet. But the secondary reasoning of why making that change needed to happen was that Francisco Lindor simply was not cutting it at that 3 spot. And I really do think that the sacrifice of moving Nimmo down to get Francisco Lindor going was one that was needed to be made, right? Now you have Francisco Lindor, and you know that he's comfortable in the leadoff spot. You can make a change if you really need to. If Brandon Nimmo doesn't turn it around, you can make a change maybe with Pete Alonso going back to that 3-hole. Yeah. And I know you're a big proponent of Brandon Nimmo maybe in that 2-hole, or you put Starling Marte somewhere. I don't know. There's ways to manipulate it, but I think that it was important, and it was most important to try to get Francisco Lindor going as soon as possible. And this move, by virtue of the way that this lineup is set up, did just that for him, which is good to see at least. So it's kind of like you're making a sacrifice, and you'd like to go 2 for 2 in terms of getting both going, but at least you got one going, and that's better than having neither going. So I think that this lineup is interesting, like you said today. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to judge the lineup until I see what the production is. I think that they've been putting better swings on the ball. I love the way Mark Vientos is swinging the bat. Brett Beatty being sent down was kind of a shocker to me, but Mark Vientos definitely deserves to win that position, and he did so, and he's out there at third base consistently now. So all I'm asking is to score runs, man. It'd be great to get the bottom of the lineup going in terms of that 8-hole hitter today, Mr. Jeff McNeil. I'm pleading, and we're all pleading, and it was kind of interesting to see Jose Iglesias get called up. It was kind of like a subtle, subliminal message by the New York Mets organization to say, hey, Jeff, we understand we got you for a couple more years. Here's Jose Iglesias, because we're not going to hesitate to put him in your spot if you don't start producing like the 300 hitter you need to be to make an impact for this team. So, yeah, this is interesting stuff all around. And like you said, I think you tweeted it out, Rob. Stearns, at the very minimum, whether you agree with every single one of his moves or not, doesn't matter. He's making these moves to try to shake things up, and that's what's most important. It's plug and play at this point in the season. Whatever works is going to work, and they're going to just plug and play, and I kind of like that. And just the third point that I want to get off here in my spiel, shout out to Ibby in the chat as well, basically saying that looking at those highlights of Darryl Strawberry and how just packed Shea Stadium was, really wanting to get that energy back into Citi Field. I agree with you. The attendance has been sort of a concern, right? It's quite simple. If you don't perform, I don't think fans are going to show up. There's no sort of fans that are going to want to watch a losing team night in, night out. Now, the diehards might still show up, but it's going to be a lesser crowd by nature. And I really do want to just give a shout out to the Mets organization. Steve Cohen probably at the top of that for making something like that for Darryl Strawberry happen, making something like this for Keith Hernandez happen. This is really important to honor the greats of the New York Mets in the past. And it's long overdue, in my humble opinion. So seeing that apple out in center field turn into a strawberry was freaking awesome. And I'm glad that we got 2 homers on the board to sort of get that out into the public view. So that was awesome. I just had to leave a comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it is unfortunate, but you know what? There was a lot of times where Shea Stadium was completely empty as well. I went to a lot of games when they were very empty. So again, it was, look, you're gonna look at the great times, right? 2016 was packed, right? After the World Series run that we had, right? And then what happened in 2017 until 2020, and you know, 2021 when you know Cohen took over, and 2023 was packed crowds at Citi Field after 2022. So it's just a trend how it goes. But again, it is very important that Chris will be right back. But yep, guys. So yeah, absolutely. And look, it's unfortunate. Look, we rather have Citi Field packed to capacity every single night. But you know what? The Mets have to get there, right? You got to start winning consistently, right? You got to start making the playoffs every year, you know, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 years. Again, the Mets never done that in their team history. So it's about time that changes a little bit here. And that's the important thing, right? You got to have consistent winning. And again, you know, everybody always goes back to the owner and goes back to, you know, Steve Cohen. And, you know, what he's trying to do is not easy in New York, right? Even the New York Yankees, who even tried to do a type rebuild in 2017, they couldn't even do it because 2017 was a good year and a lot of the rookies surprised a lot of the young kids surprised everybody, and then they started buying all over again, right? So you can't do a complete rebuild, right? This is not the Knicks, you know, for 20 plus years trying to rebuild a team, not making the playoffs once in a blue moon, right? It's not easy to do a full rebuild in New York. I don't care what anybody says. As much as Met fans might tell you they want to rebuild, they're not going to live through it. So it's not going to happen. Like they might do little things here and there like they did last year, you know, but they're keeping guys who they consider at least part of the team going forward. And again, whoever thinks there's going to be a rebuild and whoever's talking about 2026 or 2027, don't even bother with that because 2025 is going to be a year where everybody's going to see a lot of moves being made because of the fact you can't lose the prime years of Nimmo and Lindor. It doesn't make sense, regardless if you bring back Alonso or not. The fact is you can't waste prime years of those guys that you gave major contracts to. Like you can't be somewhat good again and you got 35-year-old Lindor, 34-year-old Nimmo. It doesn't work like that. Like you can't do that. It's not sustainable. So to get fans back in there, consistently start winning ball games. Don't have 500 seasons. Win, 89, 90 games, making runs at playoffs. Even if you don't win in the playoffs, you make it every year, people will start coming back. People will show up. And again, the diehards are always there. It's the casuals that show up because they got nothing better to do. So, oh, look, the Mets are good. And they go to the game, right? You're not getting 42,000 at Citi Field diehards every single night, all right? It says baseball, Yankee Stadium, you don't get 50,000 diehards every night. There's thousands and thousands of casuals that are coming from work. And again, the other issue that I keep on talking about with Citi Field is that there's nothing to do pre or post game. If it's not nice weather outside, you probably not going to tailgate. But even if you go on your own to a game or you get there, you want to be friends at the game, but you get there early, you can go to a bar, right? You got Billy's at Yankee Stadium. You got restaurants, bars at Yankee Stadium. Even though it's a bad area of the Bronx, there's still something to do there. There's nothing to do at Citi Field. Like that is the other issue as well. If you had stuff to do at Citi Field, outside of Citi Field, bars, restaurants, things to do pre and post, more people would show up. You just don't. I'm sorry. You get there 2 hours before the game, some people, or you get there 20 minutes before the game. You get there and you go home. You're either on the 7 train or in your car. That's pre and post for most Met fans, and that's
I
what
agree.
a lot of people don't understand. Like the Pittsburgh Pirates, they don't get a
Yeah.
ton of people, but I guarantee you they get a ton of casuals. Have you been around PNC Park? There's a ton of
I have
bars,
not.
ton of restaurants. I'm telling you right now, ton of restaurants, ton of bars. It's like a little nook of Pittsburgh that just for doing things besides the game. And that's the important thing to realize. So I just want to get that off my chest for it be talking about Citi Field being, basically a ghost town. Unfortunately,
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and Daniel's saying it here too, that casino project or whatever the hell Cohen wanted to stand up, like that's important to sort of drive that factor that you're saying as well. And they're gonna make it a hard time for him, but you know what?
He'll get it.
Eventually he'll get it. I promise you that.
Pay some
And it,
lobbyists. You'll be all right. Pay
yeah.
some New York lobbyists and you'll be okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's besides the point. Let's talk about today's game before we hop out of here. I saw a comment by Aaron. How confident are we today in Jose Quintana in this quote unquote must win game that we're saying? I don't know. I don't want to speak on my confidence level. All I know is that he needs to be the veteran of this rotation that we all were talking about him in the light as before the season. Nothing more, nothing less. We're not expecting to go out there and keep a scoreless ball game, keep your team in the ball game, and do at least just that. Listen, what do we talk about with Jose Quintana every single time he touches the mound? He doesn't have high velocity. He's not going to blow anybody away. He needs to be locating his pitches well. And that's not just his off-speed pitches, his fastball to get swings and misses on those fastballs, he needs to hit the catcher's mitt wherever that target's set up, whether it's high up on the letters or painting the outside corners. If he's going to leave it up and if he's going to leave it in the wheelhouse, 91 to 92 is going to leave the yard. It's going to hit the gaps, even with a struggling Diamondbacks team. I promise you. Because honestly, I know that we had differences in opinions in terms of how the Diamondbacks would do this season. I think that they are waiting to be awoken because I think on paper that team is pretty good. Not going to lie to you. So I think that they are just waiting to be awoken. And I know that this is going to be a series split at the minimum, but we need this series win really badly, more so than they do. So let's go out and do it. And it starts with Jose Quintana because we can't have a start like we had yesterday. We can't go down 3-4 runs automatically, right? It just can't happen. So I'm expecting Jose Quintana as the veteran in that rotation to set the example and set the precedent for the rest of the rotation. That's it.
Yeah, and you know what? He's got to be the guy we're expecting. He's got to be better. Like there's no ifs or buts about it. Like you got to stop leaving cookies in the middle of the plate. You got to stop hanging pitches. You got to be better spotting your fastball. That has been a big problem because we all know his fastball, even though he doesn't throw a 97, 98, when he spots his fastball, his breaking ball and off-speed pitches just feed off of that fastball a little bit more, keep the batters off balance. That's what he needs to do. We need him to be better. This team is not going nowhere. Regardless of who you think is going to pitch for this rotation, if it's Christian Scott or Joe Schmo, if Quintana is not pitching well, this rotation is going to have a hard time continuing. This team's going to have a hard time winning ball games. And you know what? We got to get ahead today. I feel like the Diamondbacks got a little bit of a momentum yesterday that worries me a little bit. And you like you said, Chris, you're 100% right. This team's waiting to get. Remember, they got a lot of injuries. Their best players not playing well right now. You don't want to wake a sleeping giant. You just don't. Not right now, right? They could do that later on when they're not facing us, but beat up some West Coast teams that are in front of the Mets in a wild card. But other than that, do your job. That's it, right? That's all we talk about, right? It's not that hard, right? Do your job. Be better than that team today. That's it. Be better than the better players, right? You got two guys in Alonso and Lindor who are coming along. JD Martinez is hitting the cover off the ball. I think Brandon Nimmo, because everybody 1, 2, and 4 is hitting well right now, I'm hoping, I'm not even going to say feel, I'm hoping Brandon Nimmo is going to come through because we need him right now. He was our best player in April when nobody else showed up. He needs to start getting there. I don't care how you do it. Act like you're the leadoff hitter, batting third. I don't know. Whatever you got to do to start getting better, stop those strikeouts, stop those terrible at-bats. It looks like he tenses up in run production type of situation, run producing situations. And that's amazing to me because it seems like he's been stuck on 29 RBIs since like April 15th. Like it's crazy. Like every time they see his stats, he's on 29 RBIs. Let's go, Brandon. Come on. Look, I didn't want to say let's go, Brandon, because it pisses some people off, but you know what I mean. Come on, Nimmo, let's go, do your job. And I think the Mets are going to win today. I think Quintana's going to pitch a quality start. Again, that's probably like 5 innings, maybe 6 of 2 or 3 run ball. I think the offense is going to show up tonight, Chris. So look, win 3 out of 4. Let's go to Washington. I know you're going to be at a couple of games there. So give me a final thoughts to this team, and hopefully you're not the only Met fan there in Washington rooting on this team.
Oh, no. There's a whole like DC Mets group over here. So we're going with the whole group, especially on Tuesday. I'm gonna try to be at tomorrow's game as well. I haven't secured tickets just yet, but yeah, that's my plan on the agenda, to see this team while they're in town, because the new scheduling of it, right? They're not gonna be back in town for forever, right? So gotta take advantage of the opportunity. So no, like I said, I'm not gonna give any predictions. That never bodes well for us on this stream when we give predictions. So I'm gonna just say, just win the ball game. These players need to step up. Some players have already been stepping up, but like you said, if they get that production from Nimmo in that 3 spot, that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. And you know what? Why don't we just see a Brandon Nimmo home run today? Why don't we just call our shot? Daniel, I know you're in the chat. Daniel, bet the home run prop, Brandon Nimmo. It's happening today. Boom, book it. Other than that,
50.
yeah. Other than that, I know you're going to be on the post game. I'm not going to be a part of the post game. I got some stuff to do today, but I will be on the roundtable later tonight, 9 p.m. Should be a great one. Everybody tune in. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Let's go Mets. And that's really all it is. Like, it's just show us. It's not even any hoper anymore. Like, it's like whatever we see on our TV screen is what it's going to be. And they need to show us, and they need to show this front office, because screw the fans at this point. Screw the fans. I know that we all want to give our opinions, and we all do give our opinions because we love to talk about this team. But these players, 1 through 9, and in the rotation, in the bullpen, etc., they need to show this front office that this team can get back into the hunt. Like you were talking about earlier, I hate talking about it, but they need to show that they can get back into the hunt in terms of the games back category in the wild card, and they need to show that they are capable of being a playoff team. Now, that's all I'm going to say. Appreciate you all. See you on the roundtable later tonight, and let's go, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what they got to do, right? Show us or you're out of town. It's very simple. So with that said, when the Mets get a big hit, they do this now. So, I said it as a bitch slap. That's probably what it is to all the haters out there. So with that said, guys, me and CP will see you later tonight on the roundtable with Hector and Hayden. Post game, I'll be joining you on post game. Hopefully with a Mets win. With that said, see you later, guys. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, guys.
Let's go Mets.